Hi there, everybody. This is James here from Comtech Translations. I'm head operations here at Comtech, and I'm joined today by Johnny Pavlik of Mantra Media, and we're going to be talking a little bit today about a really interesting topic, all about doing business in Japan. I'm really excited to speak to Johnny today and learn about his insights, and I think there'll be so much that he can share to really give some great insights for all business people in the UK to go and consider Japan and do business there. So Johnny, first of all, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So my name is Johnny Pavlik. I'm the global CEO of Monte Negro Limited. We're an organisation that's based between the UK and Japan, but we currently operate over 5 continents. So we do quite a bit of work in North America, Canada, Western Europe, Southeast Asia, South Africa, and Australia.
Perfect. That's a lot of countries. So today we're going to be specifically focusing on one, which is Japan. And Johnny, could you first of all start with telling us a little bit about your experience doing business in Japan and some of the experiences you've had?
Sure. So I started traveling to and from Japan about 11 years ago now. And I had a keen interest in the culture, in the way that people present themselves, and how they came to be. So the history of the culture and why they're so idiosyncratic. And that led me to have this fascination and meet various Japanese people and get to know them personally. When I was at university, I met somebody called Masakuno, or Kuno-san, who later became my business partner, who runs the Japanese operations. So he's our country manager based in Kyoto. And in 2015, I formed Mantra Media in London and decided that I wanted to really expand the business in Japan early on. It was a dream of mine. And so in 2015, I spoke with lots of business owners who had tried this before. So very large organizations that already had established themselves in multiple continents. And the theme that came back was that Japan, for most of them, was the hardest to crack. Japan was the hardest for them to break down those barriers and build bridges with the businesses there. I didn't know why that was. I couldn't really understand why they were coming up to these barriers and not able to overcome them. So I looked into this and I spoke to my business partner and I said, let's try and do something in Kyoto. Let's try and give ourselves quite a bit of exposure very quickly. So we organized a group of seminars alongside Kyoto University, the Kyoto provincial government, the Tokyo metropolitan government. And we started meeting with people. I met with international business owners in Tokyo and Kyoto, asking about their experiences. It almost happened overnight for us, which I know is incredibly unusual. To give you an example, we did one seminar that lasted around 3-4 days. It was, I say 3 or 4 days because we were working 24/7. The way they do training in Japan is very different. And they do very long hours. So we were training people for about 11, 12 hours a day, starting at 8 in the morning and finishing later on at night. And then there'd be questions and answers after, which is informal. And then after that, you would eat and drink with everybody and then repeat. So the training sessions were very intense. What happened as a consequence was that these institutions, businesses, entrepreneurs came to us and said, we now trust you. You've demonstrated that you know how to do all of this. Yeah. You know how to market a business in any other market across the globe. We want you to look after this for us and look after that. And it led to quite a bit of national media. And from those contacts we built. So in 2020, so the start of 2020, we brought artists together from Kyoto and Paris for the Collect show at Somerset House. In 2019, we ran a national campaign for the Nara government, whereby there was an event at the British Museum, the Japanese Embassy in London. We put loads of brands from Nara in London-based retailers and it was just a very successful campaign. So successful, it was my first time actually appearing in the Asahi Shimbun, which was pretty amazing, to be in the national Japanese dailies. And I was also on a television program as well, which was pretty cool, based in Japan, which I talked about on LinkedIn. So from that spark of just having a passion for the culture, having a passion of understanding something that operates in a very different way to how this country operates. And I'm fascinated by other cultures. Me and my business partner talk constantly about this global mindset that we've had even from when we were very young. I think probably that comes from I'm very international. My background is international. My family is from all over the world. So genetically, you look at my 23andMe, and I'm from everywhere. From Egypt to West Bavaria, so very different. And I guess that instilled in me a kind of beyond borders mentality.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's really inspiring to see how you've had this kind of dream at university of, really experiencing new cultures, and you've really driven it through, and you've done so much in your time, with the media and all the training programs. It's fantastic, really. I think it's really inspiring for other business people to kind of see you've really taken your dream and ran with it. So that's fantastic. You made a really good point there about the Japanese training program and how it was very different to the UK. Long days, informal questions at the end, food at the end of the day. What are some of the other things you've noticed doing business both in the UK and in Japan that are in Japan perhaps quite different from we do in the UK? What kind of things have you noticed in your experience?
I think let me go back to the training, because there was a really beautiful moment there that I'll never forget, and it's why we continue to do training in Japan. We actually do more training in Japan than we do in the UK.
Yeah.
That's because the experience in Japan is very different. Yeah. I'm hoping, because we've launched a training suite here at Ikigai House in Sheffield, our building here in Sheffield. I'm hoping that we can, we're going to do it anyway, that we can instill this kind of process of training that's more warm. So I'll give you an example. At the end of the training sessions, I didn't know this was going to happen, actually. My business partner sprang this on me randomly. But there is a speaker on behalf of the group after the training is finished, who will then express their feelings and thoughts on the training course as a whole, and what their feelings about you as a trainer as well. So it's quite personal.
Yeah.
And it was all beautiful and lovely and very flattering. And then after that, this process I wasn't told about. This was my first time delivering training in Japan. After that, they did a runaround of each person. So each person would stand up in front of the entire group, and we had quite a few attendees, and they would speak about their personal experience of doing this training session, how it's affected them, the knowledge that they can take forward, and why their business is going to prosper better as a consequence. And everybody spoke for about 5 to 10 minutes. It wasn't, yes, it was good, thanks. And that's, again, that's very different to the UK. We find it hard to run training sessions in the UK that are longer than 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because people are always wanting to move on to the next thing, and they're too busy. Well, they say they're too busy. They don't invest in themselves enough. I think in the UK, investing in your skills and education in Japan is like breathing. In the UK, in the West, we have this aversion to education at the moment that's spouted by some lunatic entrepreneurs in the States that just didn't invest in their own education, so they don't see the value in it. And unfortunately, that is cascading into the UK, where people don't value education anymore. And it's the complete polar opposite in Japan. Education is pivotal to your success in life. It doesn't necessarily mean having a degree, but it means investing in some form of education for yourself. So when Tokyo Metropolitan Government decided that apprenticeships were going to be kind of a national thing within tech and various other modern careers, we were the company that worked with that national organization to promote apprenticeships throughout Tokyo. So we've been pivotal in, I guess, Japan, changes in Japan as well. Over the last 6 years, we've been involved in so many governmental campaigns. At the moment, we've just been hired to work with the Kyoto government again on promoting around about 1,000 different businesses, various micro businesses, 2 to 15 people throughout Europe. We did a big research report, very similar to the work we did with Japan House London. And now we're launching a campaign this year, 2021, to hopefully bring more sustainability to these micro businesses. That's something we've done for a long time.
Perfect. I think that was really interesting to hear about the importance of education in that culture. I think just in the education and improving, I think that's just fantastic. And it was what really struck me as a difference to the UK is when you talked about giving feedback in the meetings. It was in the UK, we're used to kind of having a feedback form to fill out at the very end of a training session, and we can't wait to rush off and go to the next thing. I think our society is so fast paced in that way. We always want to do the next thing on to the next thing. But it was really nice to hear that that the attendees of the training really took the time to kind of give you the feedback personally and really show how it affected their lives. I think that's really, really quite empowering, I guess, to listen to. It must have been really kind of must have made you. How did that make you feel? I guess when you as a trainee, how did that make you feel? Hearing all the people giving you feedback, was that different?
There's probably quite a few videos online from the training we've done throughout Japan. It felt very moving. It was very moving. On the last day of that particular training group, after the training was delivered, we went out. We went to kind of a large izakaya type of setup. So a large kind of place and just have some snacks and drink. A big drinking culture in Japan. So you need to be resilient. They produced these little booklets with photos from the training.
Yeah.
In phrases. They're not here. They're not in this office, but they had. Basically, the front cover was a picture. There was one of me and there was one of my business partner. There's a picture of us on the front cover. And they were these professionally made small booklets. And inside, there were these phrases. Everyone had signed them. And there was all these wonderful things. I got given a couple of these certificates and artwork that trainees had produced for us. One of our students ran a radio show, a national radio show, and invited us. It was 2 days later on the radio show, which was very early in the morning after far too much sake. that was challenging.
Embracing the culture there.
Yeah. But so I think it depends where we go. So some people run businesses, and we're going off topic a little bit here, but some people run businesses purely for personal economic development. Yeah. That's it. I formed a business. I formed a business because I wanted to have impact in the world. I wanted to change things. I wanted to be a force for good.
Yeah. And
if you look at our campaigns, I know you know our work well. There's the work we've done with young people in the UK, the national campaigns we've done alongside the UK government, and other campaigns we've done internationally around mental health. We're doing things now that has a direct impact. And I think, like the training in Japan, whatever we do, there's this passion and empathy for the outcomes that are needed, which is why we choose to work with certain organizations, only organizations that have clean supply chains.
Perfect. No, really super inspiring. So interesting. Thank you for sharing all of that and your experiences. I'd be really interested to hear, why would you recommend to UK businesses to kind of follow your lead and kind of not just necessarily go to Japan and do business, but perhaps internationally? What have been the benefits for you that you feel others could experience of going to the country and doing business there and setting up a presence for your business?
So to create any change, you need to lead from the front. And you need to demonstrate what's possible.
Yeah.
We were, as you know, we were recently written about in Forbes, and we recently featured in the Yorkshire Post. A great, really big article in there about our leadership within in our sector. That leadership is based on demonstrating that ethics and values can come first, and living your purpose is pivotal to, one, your own happiness, but cascading happiness around you as well.
Yeah.
I've always had a global mindset.
Yeah.
This means that I am interested in other cultures and different ways of doing things. I'm humble enough to understand that just because you have a way of doing things, it doesn't mean it's the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
No matter what that is. And it's good to challenge your perceptions. It's good to learn from different types of people.
Yeah.
That's how we grow. Being an internationalist and working with businesses across the globe, I'm constantly faced with different ways of doing things, different processes, different understandings of how to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
All that does is feeds my education.
Yeah.
It feeds my ability to be more efficient, to be greater in my productivity, and to also be more understanding and empathetic to others. Distance is not useful.
Definitely not.
And if I was going to give advice to any business that had further ambitions than their front door, I would say that being open-minded and interested in learning is pivotal. And obviously now is a little bit different. We're in COVID times. But when the skies open, and they inevitably will, I would advise that everybody travels, that they go and see the world, they go and explore different places, and expose themselves to different things, because that's how we learn. unfortunately, there are so many businesses and so many structures within particular countries and cultures that have become so ingrained or so entrenched that they can't see what's around them. They don't have that macro level view. I was reading about a fantastic politician in Athens last night who had these theories on creating economic growth and sustainability and better public environments for everybody as a whole.
Yeah.
And he was utilizing international understandings of how to create useful space for everyone. And at the time, everybody around him said, no, this is wrong. We're not doing it. We've always done it this way. We're not doing that. We're not trying new things. This is the best it can be. And he thought, I'm never going to be elected again. Everybody keeps telling me they don't like what I'm doing, etc., etc. And he got elected. I think it was like 90% of the vote the next time around. And he said, why? He was like, I thought you were telling me you didn't want to change the way we do things. And they turned around and they went, yeah, well, but we realize it's all better now.
Yeah.
And it was that thing of sometimes you have to bring the change to people to get them to understand that it's what's needed. And I think that's what we're doing here is we're being incredibly open-minded and empathetic and showing that this is a way to do business. Some people think that to succeed in business, you have to be a shark. I think that you won't be running a business for very long if that's the way you operate. You might have a certain amount of success. I think that's the way that things used to be done. But now if you operate in that way, I don't think you last very long because I don't think you make many friends.
No. I think the world is so accessible now as well. It's such a big world out there. And I think a lot of what you've said, Johnny, I've certainly experienced the same thing in my career. I've got an international background. I've lived abroad. I've studied languages, worked for a translation company. I think a lot of what you said about being open-minded and really learning from other people that's one of the big things I've got out of my career, especially in an operations role. There's always different ways of doing things. And it's taking the time to speak to people in different roles, different cultures, different age groups. You can get all this experience here. And I think opening yourself up to the world, you don't just get, let's say, the perspective of people in your country. You are really getting all different ideas and stuff. And I think in my career, I've learned so much from people who are from all over the world, who are American, who are Canadian, who are French, German, Chinese. You learn all these different things from people, and it gives you a great appreciation of the world. And yet, like you said, we're all learning. So that's the best way of it being. So yeah, some really, really useful tips there. If there's one thing you've learned that really stands out from another culture, perhaps some experience in Japan, what would that be?
I think as far as a useful aspect of Japanese culture in application to our business, processes. So we've always had processes, but their approach to process is meticulous. And planning and foundational planning before launching something, an idea, a change, a brand, a campaign, they go into incredible depth in planning and ensuring that each process, it's like each process has a process.
Sounds like Comtech to me.
It works.
Yeah.
For us, it's ensured not just sustainability, but growth in multiple markets in a pandemic. So it works. So that's been the biggest key or most valuable key lesson that I've had from my time in Japan is the importance and structuring of processes so that they're useful for your business. Yes, I was reporting back to members of our board in November 2020, and I said, in 2019 we had these goals to increase our turnover, increase our profitability, have all these visions for our business. And in November, I had the gift and opportunity to be able to go to everyone and say, yeah, we achieved all that stuff.
Fantastic.
And the feedback I got straight away was, and in a pandemic? And, I feel that one of the reasons for that is the understanding, not just how to channel optimal creativity, work with some of the most talented people in our industry, but also facilitate process throughout everything that you do. To understand the data constantly. We don't just, for all our clients, we do research, so we do a lot of research into consumers and what they're doing and how they're working. But it's continuous, it doesn't stop, it's a continuous process. And that's how we're able to grow our clients month on month. It's not just, you don't just say, say an accountancy firm we work with, we've given them 53% increase in annual turnover in 1 year. And it was, I think, comparative to their spend, so return on investment was about 800%.
That's a lot of spend.
So they did well, and all our I guess the economic return for all our clients is like that. They grow exponentially working with us, and it's because of the consistent focus on the process and understanding from day to day what's working and what's not working.
It's the core of a business, isn't it? Process. You've got your process down. You can then you're constantly refining it and improving it. You can then lead the results through to your clients. So I think that's really good learning, and great to hear that the Japanese. You've learned loads from the Japanese culture about the importance of process and that as well. So hopefully, over the past over our discussion, we've convinced a lot of people to kind of potentially consider Japan as a source of business and go and do some business there, or just in general go overseas and think internationally. If you were to give 3 top tips for a business person looking to go overseas for the first time and perhaps target a new market or go for a business trip to help them prepare, what would those 3 tips be?
First thing would be language.
Yeah.
The first time I went to Japan, so Japan is notoriously like England in some ways, being an island. Their comprehension of other languages is very low. So when I first went to Japan, actually a lot of the signage wasn't in Romanji, which is Romanized language.
Yeah.
It was all in katakana, hiragana, and kanji. So you really needed language skills to even open the door.
Yeah.
And some cultures are like that. I would say it's important to learn language anyway. So if you intend to do business in this country or that country, I think you should just invest in that. I think you should invest in, even if it's the basics of hello, how are you, nice to meet you, and just some basic conversational things. That's so pivotal. My first job out when I finished university in Oxford was at Elsevier Publishing. I did a lot of international campaign work, so I'd be speaking to universities across the globe, from Seoul to Tokyo to Tunisia. It was everywhere. And the first thing I did was learn key phrases in those languages before I would speak to them. So I think that's really important for many, many reasons, both obvious and subtle. The next thing is culture.
Yeah.
Very easy to put in it if you don't understand the culture. So understanding key ways of doing business is really, really important. So perhaps how they do this or how they do that. It's really interesting, really useful. So the third piece of advice I would give, other than the language and understanding the business culture, would be to really network online before networking in person. So I've been on LinkedIn since 2010, perhaps a bit earlier. As soon as it was online, I just loved LinkedIn. And back in 2010, 2011, I was connecting with people in Tokyo, mostly professionals in the acting and modeling industry and things like that, because I did a bit of work in the fashion industry about a decade ago. And making contacts online opened some doors before I arrived.
Yeah.
And your network is everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. And the two pieces of advice that I put before of the language and the cultural understanding, once you have that network and you get in there and you arrive, you've got that behind you. So that when your network introduces you to more people, you will not make too many faux pas.
Perfect. That sounds great. I think there are 3 really good tips. Learning a bit of the language before you go overseas. And there's also things such as, organizing translations, interpreting for meetings. There's lots of opportunities there to kind of support you if you don't have time to learn the full language, but perhaps a few phrases are really, really useful. Again, learning the culture. We all know in certain cultures, different things like different greeting. There's ways of greeting people. There's ways of things you say, things you don't say. I think just having that appreciation of the culture and doing some research beforehand is so important. And again, what you said, spot on, the third point about having that network. I think just networking on social media and platforms like LinkedIn is so powerful nowadays. And you don't just have to do it in your own country. You can make connections all over the world, and having that base to start off with is really, really helpful. And then you've obviously got the language and the cultural appreciation to support you with that. So that's some really good advice there, Johnny. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. I think we've all learned some really exciting insights into the Japanese business culture and some really good tips about getting out there and going doing business, and just a really good shining example of a success story and leading through this passion from university all the way through to fruition is just incredible. So thank you so much for sharing everything today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I love anything that's a global conversation. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Johnny. Take care.